and in kindness. And I like to use fairness rather than just, because the just is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but sometimes we can view something as fair and just, and the other person doesn't. So but you get the idea, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, either get back together and treat each other with kindness, fairness, be just with each other. Or if you're going to choose to separate, hey Amy, good to see you. Assalamu alaikum. If you're going to choose to separate, that's the path for you, then do that with fairness and kindness and justice and all of that, right? And then towards the end of the verse, it goes on to say is that all of those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day are exhorted, and that so Allah is supporting them, and Allah will find a way out for him who fears Allah. So this is a time where fears are running rampant. There is so much fear of the unknown. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is redirecting us and saying, fear me. Don't worry about the circumstance, the situation, people doing this, or outcomes. Don't fear all of that stuff. Fear me. Do right by me, and I will take care of you. I will find a way out for you. And that's so reassuring, because we don't have to go through the stress and the worry of figuring all of the outcomes out, figuring out, okay, how's this going to work out? How's that going to work out? Where am I going to live? Am I going to have enough to take care of myself and my children? What is life going to be like? All of the worries, what are people going to think of me? And all of those worries that we get caught up in, and we get stuck in our mind. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, look, just do right by me. Do what I am asking you of, and I got you. I'm going to take care of everything. I will find a way out for you. That's not your domain. You don't even have to worry about that. So I kind of just wanted to frame this verse. And because, this came up for a client of mine recently, but it's something that I've been dealing with since the beginning of my divorce, of doing the right thing, and worrying about versus worrying about the outcome, right? You get a level of friction within when something doesn't feel right, when you're like, okay, this is the right thing to do, and we all know what the right thing to do is, right? We usually know intuitively, but then the thinking of, okay, well, if I am fair to my ex, let's say in terms of custody, if I'm fair to him and I give him his due rights, and I stand up for my due rights, what if I get taken advantage of? What if, he does or says this, and this to my kids? Or what if he, manipulates them? Or what if he tries to turn them against me? Like all of this thinking of these different things that come up that cause us to fear. And then it becomes really hard to do the right thing, even though intuitively we know. And that is the inner conflict that I'm talking about with yourself. And in order to do that, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. So let's get back to first, number one, whose job is it to take care of you? Are you looking at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as your protector, right? We only have so much control even of ourselves, and forget about other people and other outcomes. So, ladies, if this is resonating with you, if it makes sense, or if you've experienced it, give me a thumbs up, let me know, post in the comments your experience, or what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. I'd love to hear your comments, and that would be helpful for me too in terms of how deep I go into this. And so ask, when you think about whose job it is to protect us, we know that we have to tie our camel, right? Do our personal responsibility, and then put our trust in Allah. So how far are we going in that, in terms of like protection? Of course, common sense says that, you don't go, you lock your door, right? You lock your car door, right? You're not just going to leave everything open for someone to come and have a feast with that stuff. Like, that's common sense, that we do our due diligence and our part in protecting ourselves. But at what point are we giving Allah his due rights? Or what point are we going according to what he's laid out for us? And are we skimping on that, or are we compromising that because we feel we need to take things into our own hands? So the first thing is, let's talk about and really how we're thinking is what is going to cause us to take the actions that we take. And that is also an internal struggle, that internal conflict. It's really a jihad of the nafs, really fighting your ego, or taming your ego, or taming your nafs, whatever you want to talk about it, whatever way you want to describe it. So the first part is, how are we looking at this situation? What's the perspective? Are we able to see things clearly, or are we getting stuck in all of the thinking and overthinking around the situation? Let's say, for example, we want to be fair, and we know that the children deserve to be with both their mom and their dad, right? But we're feeling like if we give their other parents what they're due in terms of custody, that you are putting yourself in a vulnerable situation where you could be taken advantage of, or where the outcome later on will not end up the way you want it to be, or the way you think it should be. And here, we try to control outcomes. We have to just remember, first, number one is getting back to the thinking. If we're making decisions on any fog thinking, that I like to call it, anything based on fear or obligation or guilt, you won't feel at peace, and you'll just feel a lot of confusion, and it won't be clear. You'll lack that clarity, because how we are thinking is affects how we're feeling, and it affects the action that we take, or lack thereof action. So first, let's talk about the thinking. And the second thing is to know that it's not, whether it's a custody battle, or whether it's a division of assets, or it's negotiating holiday time with your ex, whatever it is, it's not that situation that you're in, but it's how you're thinking about it, and then how you're handling it. And that comes according to how you look at it in terms of your thinking. And we talked about, whose job it is to protect us. And then who has that power to protect you, right? We know la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So recognizing who has the power and whose job is outcomes in. We're so focused on controlling the situation and doing what we feel is necessary in order to get the outcome the way we want it to be, that we lose sight of, are we doing the right thing? We just start living on our own. We forget Allah in the equation, in the picture. And, that's really what I wanted to kind of bring home today, is the thinking, and the protection, and how your thinking affects your decisions, and why it's so hard. And it is hard because you're fighting your nafs. You're fighting your own self by making sure you do the right thing, because you're pleasing Allah rather than thinking that you're pleasing yourself in the moment, because none of us know the future, what's going to happen. And if we really believe that if we are obeying Allah and pleasing Allah, that He's got us, that it'll turn out good, then that's so reassuring and so hopeful. Because when you do something, like, for example, if you're focused on doing what is pleasing to Allah, even though it's the hard thing to do, and it looks like it's going to put you in a bad situation, maybe like it's going to cause a strain or take you farther away from your children, you choose to, maybe withhold what's rightly due to your ex and focus on just controlling the relationship with your child, then, you're constantly going to be working. You're on your own. You're not relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're on your own. You're constantly going to be working to try to fix that. But if you focus on what your job is, which is to do the right thing, to do what's pleasing to Allah moment by moment, because our purpose is to live a life that's pleasing to Allah, and that's it. And allow Allah to focus on His domain, which is the outcome. It's freeing. It's gives you peace. And you don't know what turn of circumstance or turn of situation is going to happen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring about something good. Like He has His own plan, right? And Allah's plan is the best. He has a divine plan, a master plan. So if we can trust that and do what's right, guaranteed, it's Allah's promise. It's not mine. It's Allah's promise that He will find a way out and He will take care of us. That means that He will do what is good and what is best for us. So Ruth is saying, respecting my soon-to-be ex-husband is vital. He's not a bad person, just not for me. I need to show him that as a Muslim, I'm not going to get nasty as such. I don't have any custody issues as my youngest is 25, but there are many future family events we will need to attend. So respect is vital. Wow, that's a really great point, Ruth. Right, respect. That's exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, to separate with kindness, fairness, justice, honor, and respect, because the only reason why you respect that other person is because he is also a servant of Allah. And, you shared a life together regardless of how good or bad it was, and there was a reason and a purpose for it. Definitely it can feel hard because those thoughts of this, why should I be kind? Why should I be fair? Why should I be respectful to this person who hurt me? Again, it goes back to the thinking, or this person who wronged me. Even when someone wrongs us, who's in charge of the outcome, right? When someone wrongs us, over there, we're talking about, taking care of ourselves. Hey, Brenda, good to see you. Assalamu alaikum, Sadia. Thanks for joining. When we're talking about, protecting ourselves, we have the personal responsibility of having limits or boundaries, right? When we know what our limits and our boundaries are and we don't tolerate or accept for people to cross them, that's one way to protect ourselves without controlling the situation. Because we're not in charge of the outcome. We're in charge of our intention, and we're in charge of our action. What action are we taking, and what is the intention of our action? Are we making the action based on our intention to please Allah, or are we just trying to control the situation to get our own outcome rather than being accepting of the outcome that's divinely planned for us? Yes, for sure. So, to kind of recap, it's the thinking around the whole perspective and situation. And are we relying on, this divine power that we all have to take care of our futures, to take care of the outcomes that we want? And it doesn't mean that we're going to get exactly what we want, but can we trust that we're going to get what is best for us? So if you want to know, I would ask you to reflect. If you believe this, like the verse that I posted, do you believe that? And I love the hadith. I like to relate this to the hadith that whoever shows enmity to someone devoted to me, I shall be at war with him. So Allah is telling us that, look, my servants, the ones who are worshiping me, the ones who are serving me, the ones who are doing good for me, fulfilling their purpose, they are doing what I have created them to do. And so if you are an enemy to that person, then I'm going to be at war with him. And nobody wants God to be displeased with them, right? So, the Hadith Qudsi goes on and on and on. And towards the end of it, it says, were he to ask me of something, I would surely give it to him. And were he to ask me for refuge, I would grant it to him. And so that's reassuring for me too in terms of this topic. And so I ask you just to reflect, do you believe these verses? Do you believe what Allah is telling us? And what makes it so hard? What makes it so difficult to act according to it? And if you want to know, thank you for the hearts. If you want to know more about how to do this, this is exactly what I teach, in your situations and in your real life examples on how to do the right thing, what is pleasing to Allah, moment by moment, like being cognizant of it. Because when we're in that storm, when we're in that hurt or that anger or that upset or that fear, we're not thinking clearly like, okay, am I doing the right thing? We're just trying to protect ourselves. And so being cognizant of our intention and our action, that is the how that I teach in my course, Reinvent Yourself After Divorce. I'd love to teach you how to do that. And if anybody who's already in there, if you want to share your experience, please feel free to post in the comments about your experience in what you've learned or how you've learned in terms of doing what is pleasing to Allah without having to worry about protecting yourself. So let me know, ladies, if that was helpful. Give me a thumbs up, give me a heart. Let me know if that was helpful for you, if it shed some light, and what your takeaways are. I want to know what you got out of this, and if it was helpful for navigating those challenging situations where you're trying to do the right thing, but there's that big but in capital letters of, okay, but if I do this, if I let go of this, will I get taken advantage of? Or will I be the loser? Will I regret it later? Those thoughts that come up in your mind, they're just thoughts. They're not real. It's your mind taking you on all different directions. What's real and the truth and the future, it only rests in God's hands. So let me know what your takeaway is. Aw, that's great. Alhamdulillah. I'd love to have you, Ruth, and I'd love to connect with you. So we'll chat soon. But let me know what your takeaways are, ladies. And if you'd like to know more, you can send me a private message, or you can post here any additional topics that you feel will be helpful for you in navigating the challenges of divorce. Thank you, ladies, for showing up and connecting with me and listening to me. I will talk to you all soon. Take care. Peace and blessings.